Jack Johnson. He's by far one of the most important boxers of all time. On Boxing Day in 1908, in front of a crowd of 20,000 people in Sydney, Australia, he defeated Canadian Tommy Burns for the heavyweight championship. This came after Johnson actually started following Burns across the globe for a solid 2 years, taunting him in the press for a match. And that match finally took place. And Tommy Burns got his butt handed to him. Johnson developed his own fighting style. It was unusual in boxing at the time. Though he usually struck first, he would fight defensively. He would wait for his opponents to tire out before becoming more aggressive as the rounds progressed. Rather than going for the knockout, he frequently fought to punish his opponents over the course of the fight. Even though Johnson was one of the best fighters of his era, racial discrimination had limited his possibilities and earnings until his battle with Burns. As a result of the win, though, he did get a lot of racist attention from the press. Through a friend, in 1911, Johnson attempted to join a Freemason lodge in Dundee, even though he was allowed to join the Forfar and Kincardine Lodge number 225 in the city of Dundee without any local opposition. It immediately ran into tons of pushback from the Grand Lodge of Scotland, simply due to his race. In reply to granting Johnson admission, the Grand Lodge stepped in and shut down the Forfarshire Lodge, and Johnson's expenses were refunded to him. Jack Johnson lived a very luxurious life. He went against social rules of the time by getting married 3 times to 3 different women, and all the women were white. He lived big. He had no problem flaunting great things that he purchased with the money that he made from boxing, endorsements, and business ventures. Believe it or not, Johnson was actually arrested on October 18, 1912, on the grounds that his relationship with Lucille Cameron violated the Mann Act, which prohibited transporting women across state lines for immoral reasons, due to her status as an alleged prostitute. Her mother said that her daughter was insane as well. Cameron, who would soon become his second wife, refused to participate, and the case unraveled. Johnson was arrested again less than 1 month later on similar accusations. This time it was Belle Schreiber, a woman he was said to have been with as a prostitute in 1909 and 1910, and she gave evidence against him. Johnson was convicted by an all-white jury in the courtroom of Kennesaw Mountain Landis, the future commissioner of baseball, who perpetuated the baseball color line all the way up until his death. Despite the fact that the instances used to convict him occurred prior to the enactment of the Mann Act, he received 1 year and 1 day in prison. Johnson didn't like the way this was going down. He evaded bail and he fled the country, first meeting Lucille in Montreal on June 25th and then going to France. It was clever the way he did it, too. Johnson disguised himself as a member of a black baseball club in order to get into Canada. The two of them then spent the following 7 years in exile, traveling Europe, South America, and Mexico. All the while, he was still the heavyweight boxing champion of the world, and after holding the title for 8 years, Johnson did officially lose the title on April 5th, 1915, when a Kansas-based working cowboy by the name of Jess Willard knocked him out in the 26th round of a 45-round fight in Havana, Cuba. Before agreeing to take on Willard in Cuba, Johnson successfully defended his title 3 times in Paris. Some people who watched the fight between Johnson and Willard in Cuba believe that Johnson lost on purpose, though. He pretty much won every single round of that fight. And then, all of a sudden, Johnson began to tire after the 20th round. As we know, he was dealing with some personal issues outside the ring. You know, like the threat of going to prison. And it's speculated that he may have allowed Willard to win in exchange for an end to those issues outside of the ring. It's alleged by many that Johnson unofficially admitted to taking a dive that day years later. Jack Johnson came back to the United States on July 20th, 1920. In September 1920, he turned himself in to federal agents at the border with Mexico and was sent to the United States Penitentiary in Leavenworth to serve his sentence. Jack Johnson fought 114 times between 1897 and 1928, winning 80 of those fights, including 45 knockouts. He passed away in a car accident on U.S. Highway 1 in Franklinton, North Carolina on June 10, 1946. Johnson was also first inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame in 1954. In 1993, he was also inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. President Donald Trump gave Johnson a posthumous presidential pardon in 2018. Interestingly, Dwayne Johnson's last name is actually a tribute to Jack Johnson. Dwayne's dad, Rocky Johnson, adopted his professional wrestling moniker to commemorate the boxer and later made it his legal name, which Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson still uses today. These are interesting things with JC.